Hi there, it's me, your friendly neighborhood artist. Please remember that if you like my videos and my content, please share it and subscribe if you can. 97% of the people who watch my videos aren't even subbed, so let's get into it. As part of 2024, I really want to prove that we kind of need to chill on hating people's art styles. I've seen so much controversy and people being upset about CalArts in the early 2010s, the pro shipper art style, and now the Jellystyle. People have been hating art styles since forever. I think that we're going to have a go at Impressionism and some other art styles that were basically similar, came from different time eras, and they were like I can't say it. They caused problems. The rise of the camera basically displaced historical artists. Now, historical artists were people who were classically trained, and they were allowed to do commissions, but they could only depict historical people or historical moments, and they were hired for like museums and locations and stuff like that. An example of a historical artist was Samuel Morris. He came to America and he wanted to like do art, but he could not get hired as a historical artist, even though there's a lot of artwork of his around. So he ended up being the guy who created Morse code, which is just crazy to me. The reason why people hated Impressionism is because the strokes, the color, there were comments of like people being lunatics who did that work. They didn't like how the paint was used or the color theory or how it just kind of created blobs of things. It broke all the rules of the French Academy of Arts, and it was so hated that people actually did protests, I guess. And like, just imagine being Van Gogh. Like he was always like a depressed guy. Like he is my spirit man. He had such good ideas and his artwork was so cool. But some of it did look a little bit goofy. Like we can admit, like I literally saw his artwork at the Cleveland Museum of Art once, and I didn't even realize it was his, and I was like, damn, he didn't even finish it. And I had someone like look at me and be like, Also, my husband told me that he's the first anime artist because he tried to do artwork. He tried to emulate the artwork style from Japan. That's just something else. Now, how about Cubism? Someone actually said that Picasso's work was going to bring the downward trend of civilization. There was like all this misleading information about Hitler as well, that getting into art school because he didn't do Cubism, but that's just dumb because Cubism was just generally so unliked that they actually had to have their own separate like space for it because it wasn't being allowed in the salon. So you couldn't get accepted doing Cubism artwork as your main source of income. People didn't seem to get how it depicted everything as misshapen, ugly, and medical professionals called Cubism the art of the diseased mind. And I kind of get what they're talking about because, like, I don't know when this was. I'm gonna have to, like, research it and, like, maybe put it right here. There was a man who had dementia, and while he was suffering from dementia, over the time of his prognosis, he would draw himself every few years, and the ending result kind of reminds me of Cubism a little bit. But come on now, I wouldn't say that like every person who draws Cubism has a diseased mind. Now there's also Surrealism. But the thing about Surrealism is it was kind of like only around for a short period of time. And I think it was because people wanted something to complain about because World War II was going on, and it got real big because like people thought it was like people's paranoid dreams and delusions, and they just wanted to draw like the unconscious. And like by the time World War II was over, there was like no need for that. So it just kind of disappeared. And then when Salvador Dali died, it basically just disappeared. Because I feel like a lot of people thought that they were on drugs, and I feel like some of them might have been on drugs. Because having paranoid delusions and just drawing, there's something very like mentally ill about that. Who knows? Maybe people who did Surrealism were like mentally ill at some point. And they were all having this thing where they were expressing themselves on canvases and just drawing whatever and making people weird. And let's be honest, all of us have literally drawn stuff while we're half asleep, and then we wake up and we're like, that looks terrible. Why did I do that? And you're like, you know what? I decided to draw at 2 a.m. when I was half asleep, and I should have gone to bed 3 hours ago. And let's talk about comics, right? There was literally moral panic in the 40s and 50s that it was going to turn teens into delinquents. And people were starting to burn comics because they hated them so bad. And when people were in college, art teachers would literally snub comic artists. They considered it low art, whatever that means. And it wasn't even considered an artistic expression. So can you imagine, like, you are really inspired by comics and then you go into art school and they're like, no, you have to do abstract art or you can't do art. I have never stopped hearing this from, I think the snobbiness of some people in the art community literally comes from having gone to art school. Like, going to art school will make you a better artist, but going to art school, it enforces those thoughts that certain things aren't art. Some people still say that digital art isn't art, even though it's literally just doing the same thing but digitally. Like, there's no difference. There is really no difference. If you picked up if a traditional artist picks up an Apple Pencil and draws literally on a digital canvas, they can do their skills one for one. And the reason I know this is because I literally had that problem. When I was drawing in a Wacom, I had like a regular Wacom with no screen. I had such a hard time drawing digitally, and I was like, you know what, maybe digital art's not for me. Maybe I can't do it. Like, this is just impossible. And then like 4 years ago, I got my first iPad, and it literally was just like, I was able to do it instantly. The skills just transfer over. It's just like some people who start digitally, they never go back and do traditionally. But I still do. I do like my studies and stuff. I feel like maybe I should do a sketchbook tour because I'm not like one of those famous artists who have like beautiful drawings in their sketchbooks. So you can like just see how ugly they actually are. Because let's be real, like, I love all of the artists that I follow, but they got the most beautiful sketchbooks, and you're like, girl, boy, they stop it. Anyway, and now we're in the early 2000s, right? And I am 100% sure that there was something about anime. People did not like anime, and I was talking to people on Reddit, and there was a post on there, and literally someone said that when they were in college, someone said that you can't draw like the Japanese when they were just learning how to draw anime, and there's no market in the West for anime. And we had people like that in the 2010s too. I mean, people now still say that anime isn't art, and that's just objectively wrong. Like, it is. It's just different. And do you guys remember the Tumblr art style? Do you guys remember that? I remember that. You know, it was, you could tell when something came from Tumblr, and like the Cal art style is bred from Tumblr. Like, I'm gonna post a picture of this. Like, the thing about the Tumblr art style is that it was like defined by like ugly, it had pastel color palettes, it was gross. It usually had very ugly characters and SJW stuff, bad anatomy, droopy eyes, and red noses. People like didn't really like that outside of Tumblr, but then like some of these artists grew up and they started drawing, you know, in a different way. So you can still kind of tell when somebody came from Tumblr. Like, one of my favorite artists came from Tumblr. Some of my inspiration comes from his work. But anyway, like I'm gonna post an example of like the Tumblr art style. Like, this is, when you look at this is kind of ugly. I can see why people were like, no, I don't like this. This ain't cute. Like, I can objectively look at it and say, like, I don't have a problem with it, but I can see why people would look at it and go, this is very ugly. Why are you drawing? Because Z-Fix's art had like a amalgamation of that style, and when they would fix art in quotations, they would just apply the Tumblr art style to whatever the thing is that they didn't like. And I think that's why like they were so highly debated. Now, CalArts has kind of like the same thing, causing a lot of the same base syndrome, repetitive, lazy, copy-paste. And while that is true, you could make really good shape language with characters. Like, that was like one of the things that I think that was one of the things that made it unique, was because, like, you know, you could never not say who Steven Universe is, or like that some of the Pixar characters, or like you could tell them from the silhouette. They had strong silhouettes because they're using simple shapes. But also because they use simple shapes, even if they were in color, you know, a lot of them had to look alike. But like at the same time, you can't say that those things didn't already exist in the past, because if you look at anime from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they all kind of had the same popular look. Like if you look at 80s anime, unless you're looking for a very specific artist, I could not tell you who drew what. In the 90s, I kind of know, but like Sailor Moon and Fushigi Yugi kind of do look alike, for example, because artists draw off of other artists. So if someone sees something that they like in someone else's work, they're going to do that. Like, for example, like everyone in the 90s was drawn like super long, like their bodies and their proportions were very long. Like, I really love Sailor Moon and Fushigi Yugi. They're like one of my favorite animes. And I'm going to put up one of my old arts right here, and you can tell that there's some of that working in there, even as my child self. And I understand that, like, you know, it was super homogenous art style, and some people just don't like it because a lot of progressive types of drawing seem to be similar to pop art, and maybe that's why some people don't like it, because it kind of just meshes together. Now we're going to talk about this jelly art style. We're going to talk about that right now. I've seen people complaining about the jelly art style, and people were also complaining about the pro shipper art style. Now, the pro shipper art style, I don't hate it, but I understand why people hate it. I do. There's this art style that I see on TikTok where people are only dressed in hoodies and they have like the fluffy Genshin Impact hair. I feel like that's a very beginner artwork, like art lore type stuff. But I understand why art lores draw that stuff. But you can always hope that they'll like grow out of drawing people wearing hoodies, because they're like, when you can't draw other stuff, it just shows that you're insecure in your own work. Like, there's definitely a difference between having a style and choosing not to draw something because you're uncomfortable drawing it. Like, I really hate drawing knees and legs and feet. I hate it. I think a lot of people hate that. I need to get better at it. I need to get better at drawing thighs, but I need to do thigh studies, and I'm like, I don't want to do studies like every other person. Anyway, okay. Now, the jelly art style is kind of like restrictive, but it's also, it kind of reminds me of Cooleen's art style. And she mostly draws in that webtoon art style. And you all know that art style. It's where everyone looks like they're from Korean comics. And the jelly off style is just a offshoot of the webtoon, but it's more wet. And people don't like it for all the reasons that kind of venture in the uncanny valley, and the artists not taking leaps and bounds with their own art. And I guess they just want to draw pretty women looking sweaty and sticky. Now, come on. You want them to draw in other styles other than their own? Do you guys do that? Because I know I don't. I don't draw in the jelly art style. I don't draw in the pro shipper art style. I don't do Cubism. I don't do Impressionism. I don't even know what my art style is, to be honest. I think it's a mix of Western comics and anime. Like, these artists can do whatever they want, and they're probably really young. They're probably early 20s, late teens. Some of them might even still be teenagers. Like, give it like 6 years, and I swear the jelly art style will just be a thing of the past. Like, there was also, do you guys remember, there was a Japanese art style that was real popular in like 2009 or like 2012, where it was like, everything was like skinny lines, like super skinny, super light lines, and pastel color palettes. Like, that was an art style, 100%. That was art. I don't know what that was called, but that was definitely an art style that I've seen a lot. If I can find a picture, I'm gonna post it. Now, to be honest, I have a hard time keeping up my style as is, and I hope that this like gave you guys a little bit of like not only a lesson, but an understanding that it's an art style, man. While I'm not like a super fan of it, who cares what people draw, man? I know TikTok is like super toxic, but you know what? I don't even know how to get artists on my TikTok. Like, I never see artists come on there. I always have like kittens. and weird old people and their pets and like murder stuff on my For You page, like crime. Like, I want to see art, and I follow artists, but their stuff never comes on my For You page. And I follow like 2,000 people on there. What do you guys think of the Jelly art style? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Do you do it? Or what about the stuff that I just mentioned? Like, what do you guys think of Cubism? Like, I don't even know if some of you guys know what some of these types are. I'm not gonna use that. What do you guys think of the Tumblr style? Did any of you guys draw on this Tumblr style? Did any of you guys do the Cal art style? I know some people do Adventure Time. And what do you think of my style? Because I never actually asked anybody what they thought of my art style. So also, thanks for getting me almost to 400 subs. I'm super pumped, and I'm gonna have a video the day after Christmas. It's gonna be my Christmas video. And I also have some other videos planned, so get excited. I'm sorry I didn't post much last week. It just is what it is. Have a good day, guys.